Hey everyone, Mr. Harvey here. Let's continue our lecture on the French Revolution, and today we are going to be talking about the Directory, the Consulate, and the rise of Napoleon. Now, in the last lecture, ladies and gentlemen, we talked about the Convention and that radical phase of the Revolution. The Jacobins, Danton, Robespierre, right? We talked about that chaos, just the bloodshed and the instability of the Revolution. Today, we're going to be talking about kind of the revolutionary taking a new turn and really turning to that military dictatorship of Napoleon that was predicted by Burke, if we remember. That was predicted, that military dictatorship of Napoleon. So let's get into it. Now, after the Thermidorian reaction, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to see things start to calm down a little bit. But there's still, France is still very unstable, okay? And the next government that we're going to be seeing take over, okay, is the Directory. Now, let's remind ourselves of our different phases, right, of the French Revolution. We've already talked about the National Assembly and the Legislative Assembly, that liberal phase of the Enlightenment, that liberal phase of the French Revolution that's very Enlightenment influenced, okay? We saw the radical phase, which is the Convention. Okay, and we're going to be talking about the Directory, all right? So we're going to see a new constitution, and this constitution is 1795. And we've seen three constitutions so far. Constitution of 1791 to create the Legislative Assembly, Constitution of 1793 that really never went into effect to create the Convention, and then we have this Constitution of 1795 to create the Directory. The Directory is a bicameral legislature. It has two chambers, an upper chamber and a lower chamber. The upper chamber of the legislature was this Council of Elders, the lower a Council of 500, not super important, okay? And you have five people kind of acting as the executive power, like almost five presidents, okay? What's really important to understand about the Directory, ladies and gentlemen, is it's going to fail, okay? It's definitely going to fail and lead to Napoleon, but it was very much middle-class controlled, and this was a reaction to the Convention and the sans-culottes. Remember, the Convention was very much controlled and influenced by the lower class, the sans-culottes, okay? We are going to see the Directory, ladies and gentlemen, be very much influenced by the middle class. And that's kind of echoing what we saw in the National Assembly and the Legislative Assembly. Okay, so we're kind of returning to that middle class influence. And that's very much capitalistic, okay, very much influencing and being controlled by the middle class, influencing business, okay, very much a capitalistic notion. Okay, so the sans-culottes are removed from political life. But a fundamental weakness of the Directory, ladies and gentlemen, is that it was only supported by a very narrow band and demographic of French society. Okay, there's a lot of people who did not support it and not like this government, and we're going to see some of the other challenges to the Directory that are going to lead to its failure. Okay, we're going to see that the Directory is going to conclude peace and create peace among some of the other European powers, Prussia and Spain. But one of the fundamental flaws of the Directory, ladies and gentlemen, is this idea that the two-thirds law, which say that two-thirds of the members of the Convention have to be in the Directory, which is really silly because the Convention was a complete disaster. We had Robespierre, Danton, and the Jacobins, and just the chaos of the Reign of Terror. You're going to put two-thirds of those politicians into the new government? Not a good idea, and it's not going to be a good idea, and you're going to see a lot of ineffective politicians be within the Directory, which is eventually going to lead to its downfall and failure. We're going to see some instability with this conspiracy of equals led by this man named Gracchus Babeuf, which we called for a more radical democracy, more equality of property. There was challenges from royalists, people who supported the Bourbon monarchy, who wanted the Bourbon monarchy to return to prominence. But the biggest challenge for the Directory is that it relied on the military. The military provided a lot of support for the Directory, and the military successes kind of made the Directory look good. All right. There's no coincidence, ladies and gentlemen, that we're going to see the military take over after the Directory in the form of Napoleon. And so the Directory was fundamentally flawed in that it was too reliant upon the military. Okay, and there's no coincidence that we're going to see Napoleon take over, ladies and gentlemen, after the Directory. Okay, and let's talk about it. All right, so one of the new directors, ladies and gentlemen, is Abbe Sieyes, and if you remember him, he was really important because he had that famous quote kind of about the third estate, right? Like, what is the third estate? It's everything. What has it had? What has it been before? The Estates General. It's been nothing. What does it want? What does it demand to become something? Right? Abbe Sieyes is a prominent politician. He's one of the directors, and he's going to propose a new constitution. But in order to get this new constitution and create this governmental change, he needs the military, and he needs a coup d'état. I want you to highlight this word, circle it, and star it. Very important for us. A coup. Okay, so he needs a coup, and he needs the military. All right, and you're gonna see Napoleon step up and be like, "Hey, I'll help you." All right, and Napoleon is no joke, ladies and gentlemen. This dude is smart. He is very savvy. Okay, and we're gonna see Abbe Sieyes, really display some arrogance and some hubris, and really underestimate who he's dealing with. He has no idea who he's dealing with. This is Napoleon. Okay, and Napoleon is going to play him like a drum, and really just just throw him out of the way once Napoleon has what he wants, which is power. Okay, so Abbe Sieyes really just gets pushed aside once Napoleon enacts this coup d'état. Napoleon's going to take power and issue a new constitution, and Abbe Sieyes, he didn't realize who had the power. Okay, Abbe Sieyes wants this constitution, and he needs the military, but who had the power? It was Napoleon. Napoleon was in charge of this of the military, and Napoleon had the power. Napoleon's going to overthrow him, take power, institute a new constitution of 1799, and that will be the beginning of the consulate, where Napoleon will be named first consul of the state and establish his rule. This rule of one man over France, okay, and we are going to be seeing the beginning of Napoleon's dictatorship, okay, which is going to be during the consulate and, of course, with his empire, okay. And here's just a cartoon illustrating Napoleon's coup in 1799. Okay, so Abbe Sieyes has really just opened up Pandora's box, and we have seen Burke's prediction, ladies and gentlemen, of a military dictatorship taking place during the revolution. That prediction has come to fruition. Okay, so let me give you a little bit of background about Napoleon. Don't worry, this I know it's blurry, but it will show up. Okay, let me give you a little bit of background on Napoleon. A lot of historians, ladies and gentlemen, believe that Napoleon is one of the most brilliant military strategists, military minds of all time. We're going to see his downfall with Waterloo, and we'll see his downfall with his campaign in Russia, but Napoleon was no joke. Okay, a lot of historians believe that of all the great generals, Genghis Khan, Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, that Napoleon was right up there. He was definitely a force, and he was brilliant. Let's talk about his. Let me give you a little bit of background on his early military career, his early campaigns, where he really starts to develop a taste for governing and a kind of infatuation with power. His early military career was in Italy. Okay, he's going to conquer most of northern Italy for France, and this is where he really developed a taste for governing and a taste for power. Okay, in northern Italy, he was very successful when he kind of governed this area for France, and he's going to suppress religious orders, end serfdom, and limit old age noble privilege. But this is where he really starts to be like, you know what, I can rule, and really develop this kind of ambitions for more and more power, which he will gain. Okay, another prominent part of his military career where he became more famous was his Egyptian campaigns. He's actually going to lose here. He's going to be defeated by the British Navy under Admiral Nelson. We'll talk more about Nelson with the Battle of Trafalgar, which is very important for us. But his fleet is going to be destroyed at the Battle of the Nile, and he's going to abandon his troops in Egypt, ladies and gentlemen. But kind of just pretend that nothing really big happened or anything like that, and he's going to receive a hero's welcome. So Napoleon's going to be very popular, very prominent, very powerful, and we're going to see him use that power to help create his empire. Now, really interesting note about the Egyptian campaigns for Napoleon, ladies and gentlemen, is the Rosetta Stone. During this time, the Rosetta Stone will be discovered, and the Rosetta Stone is going to be just a landmark discovery because it's going to help Europeans understand Egyptian hieroglyphics. If you look at this stone very closely, here's a picture of it. I believe it's in the British Museum today. It might have moved though. But the stone, ladies and gentlemen, has multiple languages on it. You have this language right here, this language right here. This is Greek. And these are actually, like, this section right here is the exact same thing as this section right here, ladies and gentlemen. And therefore, by understanding the Greek right here, the linguists and historians and archaeologists were able to start to decipher Egyptian hieroglyphics, okay, and they were able to start to understand it, which is going to facilitate a huge interest, ladies and gentlemen, in Middle Eastern culture, Middle Eastern geography, and we're going to start to see Europe interacting more with the Middle East. Okay, let's talk about the consulate period, ladies and gentlemen. It's about 5 years, and this is that next phase, right? So let's kind of remind ourselves, right? We've had the National Assembly, we've had the Legislative Assembly, we've had the Convention, we've had the Directory. Now we're on the consulate period, which is our 5th phase of these governments of the Revolution. Okay, and Napoleon's going to rule with supreme power, ladies and gentlemen. He's going to utilize rhetoric of the revolutionary. He's going to say, I'm a big supporter of the revolution and nationalism, okay? We got to protect France to gain power, and he's going to have the backbone of his power is the military. The military supports him, and he has absolute loyalty from the military. We will definitely see that when he returns after his first exile, okay? Now, Napoleon, ladies and gentlemen, and this is something that's going to be really interesting. Napoleon's going to have little, shades of being very revolutionary in kind of the notion of the Enlightenment. We're going to see him be very revolutionary and embody some aspects of the revolution. But there'll be other parts of Napoleon that are really hypocritical to the revolution, and so we're going to see him, he really reminds me of Oliver Cromwell, and this part of the French Revolution really reminds me of the English Civil War, where if you remember, right, the Parliament was trying to get rid of the Stuarts, Charles I, who was trying to be an absolute ruler, and they end up with Oliver Cromwell. And during Oliver Cromwell in his rule, he almost rules like a dictator. Well, we're going to kind of see the same thing. Is that we're in France. They started out with Louis the 16th and the Bourbon monarchy, the absolutism, and they're going to end up with, not a monarch, but an absolute ruler in the form of a military dictator. So we're going to see that. And Napoleon will have a lot of qualities of where he rules kind of hypocritically like an absolute ruler, but in the name of the revolution, which is very ironic and hypocritical. And Napoleon is very much going to foreshadow the dictators of the 20th century that we're going to be studying. Hitler, Mussolini, Franco, Stalin. We're definitely going to see a lot of elements of Napoleon that we'll see later on in those dictators of the 1900s. Okay, all right. So early on in the consulate, ladies and gentlemen, Napoleon is going to restore order and peace in France. Okay, he's going to only employ people that are loyal to him. He's going to employ men of all political factions in his government, but they need to be loyal. Does that remind you of anything? Absolutely, right? That definitely reminds us of Henry of Navarre when he was consolidating power, right? Creating new nobles that are loyal to him, the intendant system, right? Very much the early Bourbon monarchs who were trying to consolidate power. Napoleon's going to do very similar things. He needs loyalty, okay? He's also, ladies and gentlemen, and this is where we see him really be an enemy of the revolution, is that he is going to, and this is where we see kind of those that absolute ruler, dictatorship qualities within him. He's going to silence his opposition. He's going to have no political opponents, which is definitely very anti-revolutionary, okay? And kind of create this police state in France. He's going to have a secret police. He's going to have a spy system to surveil citizens. He's going to have no political opponents, which is very anti-revolutionary, not very, that's not very liberal, okay? He's going to put down his opponents, royalists, okay, anybody who threatens his power. He's going to kind of invent lies in order to attack political opponents and invent threats. And he's also going to attack freedom of speech, freedom of the press. He's going to attack newspapers, shut down newspapers who opposed him, and lessen freedom of speech. And this is where we really see the hypocrisy of Napoleon. He's saying, I am a friend of the revolution. However, his actions say something different. And so that's very important for us to understand, is there are notions of Napoleon that are very anti-revolutionary, but we will see later on notions of Napoleon that are very revolutionary. So You might get a question on the AP exam that says, how does Napoleon embody aspects of the revolution, and what aspects of Napoleon do not embody aspects of the revolutionary? And here's some examples. Napoleon silencing his opposition, silencing freedom of the speech and freedom of the press. I mean, Voltaire would be terrified at this. Voltaire would be so upset with this, right? So Napoleon, these are just examples of Napoleon not being friendly to the revolution. Okay, and in 1802, he's going to name himself first the consul for life. Okay, let's talk a little bit about his foreign policy during the consulate period. During this time, ladies and gentlemen, Napoleon is going to start to make peace with France's enemies. That's very important, ladies and gentlemen. Napoleon is trying to calm things down. Now, we know Napoleon is going to unleash warfare. The Napoleonic Wars are coming. Napoleon's doing this on purpose. He's no dummy. Okay, Napoleon is doing this on purpose because he is this is the calm before the storm. He needs time to rearm. He needs time to consolidate his power, and then he's going to unleash the storm upon Europe. So he's going to end this war of the Second Coalition, calm things down, but he's only doing this because he needs to get ready. Okay, he needs to get ready for the war. So the treaties of Luneville, Treaty of Amiens, okay, is going to bring relative peace to Europe, but Napoleon is he's pressing pause. Okay, he's getting ready to unleash war on Europe again. Let's talk about his domestic reforms, ladies and gentlemen. Super important. Let's get out a highlighter. Let's make sure we know this, the Napoleonic Code. You have got to know the Napoleonic Code when it comes to Napoleon and his domestic reforms, ladies and gentlemen, okay? The Napoleonic Code is super important. This is Napoleon's complete codification, reform of the French law code, and this is going to be one law code for all of France. That means that Western France, Northern France, Eastern France, Southern France, they all have the same law code. Whether you're in Paris, Normandy, wherever, Marseille, Nice, it doesn't matter, okay? This is the same law code for all of France. Really important, okay? This is considered his longest lasting legacy. And this is where we start to see him really embody some aspects of the revolution, okay? He's going to emphasize the protection of private property. Very much Lockean right there, John Locke, okay? He's going to, and the big thing that he's going to do, ladies and gentlemen, is he's going to make many of the achievements in the revolution permanent. What? That's wild, okay? Really important for us to understand. All the privileges of the ancien regime, pre-revolutionary France, are going to remain abolished, okay? No more three estates, no more quartervet, no more unequal taxation. Local liberties, hereditary offices, guilds, manors, that is all abolished, ladies and gentlemen. Really important. So Napoleon is going to make a lot of those changes that we saw in the revolution permanent, and that's an example of him being revolutionary. Okay, the three estates gone, those privileges gone, hunting rights gone, corvée gone. Okay, very important for us, ladies and gentlemen. Very important for us. Freedom of religion. Okay, property rights, inheritance rights for women. Whoa, these are some significant changes, and these illustrate some of the revolutionary aspects of Napoleon. So we talked about in the previous slide how Napoleon was very much anti-revolutionary, no freedom of speech, secret police, ruling as a dictator. John Locke would be terrified at that. John Locke would be so upset him ruling as a dictator because we know John Locke favored a republic. However, we see Napoleon then favoring private property, which is a natural right that John Locke, considered for the people. So we can see him kind of, mixing and matching on both sides, being anti-revolutionary but being revolutionary, okay? However, it's really important to understand, ladies and gentlemen, that Napoleon is very much following in the same mode as we've seen earlier with Robespierre, the Jacobins, when it comes to rights for women, very much following the spirit of Rousseau, the inequity between men and women, okay? We're going to see laws for women and children are going to be legally dependent upon the husband or the father. Divorce is going to become more difficult for women. Married women need their husband's consent to dispense of their own property. We're going to see still Napoleon continue. This represents some continuity of perpetuating the inequity, that inequality between men and women. Important for us to remember, okay? And it's important that Napoleon is also going to consider this conservative attitude of middle class favoring the middle class over workers, and this is definitely in response to, ladies and gentlemen, the sans-culottes and that reign of terror, right? Definitely, Napoleon is definitely favoring the middle class. Worker organizations, strikes, unions, that's going to be forbidden. Workers are going to have fewer rights than their employers. Definitely, though, important for us to understand that this is This is definitely in the spirit of the Enlightenment. Okay, this is kind of going to be considered a little bit more conservative, ladies and gentlemen, in the sense that we're going to start to see new ideals like socialism and communism start to come out in the 1800s. But this is definitely favoring capitalism. Okay, favoring business over the workers, and we're going to talk more about that a little bit later in chapters 12 and 13. Okay, financial reform. One of the things that Napoleon needs to do is make sure that the economy of France is ready to go before he starts the Napoleonic Wars. He just unleashes warfare on Europe, and he's going to balance the national budget. He's going to establish a sound currency and public credit. He's going to really try to rev the economy up before he starts his wars. Lower food prices, increase employment, lower taxes on farmers. Really make sure that France's economy is sound, is concrete before he starts his wars. Okay. Again, though, he's not favoring the workers. Though he is not allowing the workers to form guilds or trade unions. Okay, he's favoring the middle class, which is something that we saw, ladies and gentlemen, through the Directory, through the Legislative Assembly, National Assembly. We saw that, right? More middle class favoring. Okay, very important for us to understand. Okay, and he guaranteed that church lands that were redistributed are going to remain in the hands of those new owners, mostly the peasants. Okay, so it's very still unfavorable towards lower class workers, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, and here is just kind of some images associated with this new Bank of France, some coins, and the new bank. All right, let's talk about religious reform, ladies and gentlemen. Super important. We have seen within the Revolution the Catholic Church, Catholics, the clergy be attacked, literally, and a lot of their policies and a lot of the structures have really been detrimental to them. And so we're going to see, ladies and gentlemen, Napoleon, before he starts his wars, ladies and gentlemen, really try to calm things down between the government and Catholics and the clergy. Okay, and he's going to have, and let's highlight this, his Concordat of 1801 with the Roman Catholic Church. Okay, and his motive, like I said, is to make peace with the church, make peace with the clergy, and to get Catholics on his side. He's going to need all hands on deck for what he's about to do, and he does not want to have to worry about Catholics as opposed to Russia, Austria, Prussia, England when he gets into these wars. Okay, so his motive is to make peace with the church, and that's going to weaken the church's support for the monarchists who sought to restore the Bourbons to the throne, and it's going to give him more support. That's what he needs. He needs their support, ladies and gentlemen. And remember, the revolution has been so far very adversarial to Catholics, to the Catholic population, to the clergy and the Catholic Church, right? The civil constitution of the clergy, the de-Christianization that we've seen. We've seen some policies that civil constitution of the clergy early on in the revolution, and that de-Christianization during the convention, right? Making an enemy of the church. Napoleon is trying to reverse that. Okay, he's trying to calm things down. And one of the biggest things that he's going to do, and let's highlight that, is he is going to flat out state to the Catholic Church and to all Catholics in France, hey, Catholicism is our official religion. Now, you all might think that, whoa, Harv, that's not a really big statement to make, okay? Napoleon knows that, okay? Napoleon knows France very well. He is sharp, okay? And he understands, he knows that France is Catholic, and we've known that, right? Ever since the wars of 1500 involving France, that Concordat of Bologna, right? We've known that with Henry of Navarre, how he was forced to convert to Catholicism in order to facilitate peace. We know that Catholicism is the dominant religion, okay? And Napoleon knows that, and he simply, in order to make the church feel better, okay, is just going to state that, and he's going to state Catholicism is our official religion, and that's going to make Catholics, trust him. The church is going to start to trust him. And Napoleon really doesn't have to give up too much. All he has to state is that Catholicism is the official religion of France, and he's going to get more of their support. And so he says, okay, I'll just state it. And so Napoleon, just by stating this, is getting their support. And it's really at not much of a cost to him. Okay? He's going to have priests take that oath to the state. Okay? And this is an agreement that's going to require both the clergy who accepted the revolution and those who didn't, to resign. Okay, so priests are going to have to take that oath to the state. Remember, a lot of them refuse to take the oath to the civil constitution of the clergy. Napoleon's going to make them take an oath to the state. Okay, but the Catholics feel a lot better because Napoleon is saying, hey, Catholicism is the official religion of France, and that is making them feel a lot better about Napoleon and the revolution. Okay, so that agreement is going to require both clergy who accepted the revolution and those who didn't to resign. So he's going to put in new clergy. All right, the state is going to name their own bishop and pay that bishop's salary. The papacy is going to be required to renounce claims to the church land seized during the revolution. So Napoleon's going to be able to keep that land. Napoleon is, ladies and gentlemen, controlling the church very effectively. But hey, Catholicism is the official religion of France. That just by stating that and promoting that, Napoleon has them on his side, which is what he needs. Okay, and we're going to see these organic articles of 1802 eventually start to establish supremacy of the state over the church. Okay, so Napoleon, you can see how savvy he is and how smart he is. He is establishing control over the Roman Catholic Church, ladies and gentlemen. Very important. Let's continue. Educational reform, okay? We're going to see a system of public education under state control start to be normalized and spread throughout France, okay? You're going to start to see rigorous standards that are going to be available to the masses. We're going to see secondary and higher education reorganized to prepare men. Okay, we're not told on educational equity, right? We don't see necessarily women fully entering this yet. We'll start to see women become more educated later on, especially in the later 1800s, 1900s. Okay, and education is also going to become important in determining the social standing, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to see that Napoleon start to introduce a meritocracy. We saw that with Frederick the Great with Prussia. We saw that with the table of ranks within Russia. So Prussia and Russia are doing it. France, Napoleon, this kind of represents, ladies and gentlemen, a little bit of that Enlightenment, a little bit of revolution, okay, a little bit of that liberalism. Napoleon doing this in order to establish a meritocracy, establish more universal education, especially for men, okay, and that's definitely the spirit of the Enlightenment, ladies and gentlemen, okay, and again, and this to continue that, ladies and gentlemen, he's going to just, this career is open to talent. He's going to make this meritocracy, even on a bigger scale, not just when it comes to education. This career is open to talent, ladies and gentlemen, is a key Napoleonic policy. Okay, citizens are going to be theoretically able to rise in the government service purely according to ability, and this is straight out of the Enlightenment, and this is just straight out of the influence from Prussia and Russia. Okay, and what he wants to do is create a new nobility. Okay, create, and reward more talented generals and officials, and put people in positions that are going to help Napoleon and help his army and help his government be successful in this meritocracy. Okay, very important, and we're going to see the middle class benefit significantly from this. Okay, the government's going to reward, people who are talented with pensions, property, titles, and power. And so we're going to see with this careers open to talent, ladies and gentlemen, this meritocracy is really going to benefit those who have the skills and who have the talent to rise throughout the government, rise throughout the military and the bureaucracy. Okay, neither military commissions and civil offices cannot be bought or sold. Okay, and what's important about this, ladies and gentlemen, is the working class, the sans-culottes, are no longer politically significant. We see the middle class gaining more and more power, more and more influence in the French government and French military. Okay, foreign affairs, really important. Okay, one of the things that we're going to start seeing, ladies and gentlemen, is we are going to see France lose the colony of Haiti. Okay, and Haiti is going to achieve its independence in 1804. Haiti is an island, is a country. It was a colony, is now a country on an island in the Caribbean. Really important. It's next to the Dominican Republic. Okay, and this is where we start to see the revolution spread, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, the Haitian Revolution was sparked by the French Revolution. It began in 1791, and what's really important is that you're going to see that this was led by African slaves, and they're going to lead this revolution against their white masters, and we're going to see the African slaves free themselves, and they were led by this brilliant slave named Toussaint L'Ouverture, and we're going to see France officially recognized Haiti's independence in 1804. And the reason for this, ladies and gentlemen, is the success of Toussaint L'Ouverture. He was brilliant. But also Napoleon is not worried about affairs in the New World. He is focused on Europe. Okay, and we're going to see that very much similar to Otto von Bismarck when we get to him and what Germany does. Okay, Napoleon is focused on gaining power in Europe. Okay, we're also going to see, ladies and gentlemen, the Louisiana Purchase during this time. Napoleon is going to abandon. And this shows kind of the abandonment of France when it comes to the New World, the Americas. He's going to abandon the American Empire. He's going to sell this territory to America to focus on Europe. Okay, so this is definitely a big deal for America because this is going to add a lot of size to the young American country. But you'll learn more about that next year in APUSH. But this is significant for European history because this is Napoleon getting this money. Not having to worry about his territory, not having to divert forces or his military to the Americas, so he can focus on Europe, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. All right, let's stop here for today, ladies and gentlemen. In the next lecture, we're going to start to talk about the final phase of the French Revolution, which is Napoleon's empire. Thank you so much.